The purpose of this Forgotten Saints series is to present saints that are otherwise largely unknown. I came to this when reflecting on pretty much every RCIA program I've ever participated in or witnessed, where during the rite when the bishop meets those who are entering the church, they are greeted by the confirmation saints' names that they have chosen for themselves instead of by their own given name. They're greeted by the name of their patron saints. And in Portland, I saw countless St. Teresa's, St. Francis of Assisi, and St. Michael's, and all the most commonly known saints. So I figured that my own way of helping people make good choices is to present one or two saints each month worthy of our attention, but who have otherwise been stricken from our memory as Catholics for whatever reason. And to that end, I have on his feast day, at least on the pre-1955 liturgical calendar, today, February 27th, the feast of St. Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrows, who is the subject of our Forgotten Saints episode today. He is the patron of students, those seeking to enter the priesthood, and as you'll hear, a timely saint for these strange days that we live in. St. Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrows was born Francesco Possenti at Assisi, Italy, on March 1st, 1838, and he died at Gran Sasso, Italy, February 27, 1862. He was canonized by Pope Benedict XV in 1920. Francesco, or Francis, as he is commonly known as, comes from the foot of the Apennines in rural Italy. Francis was the son of Sante Possente, a lawyer of great talent and renown, who was appointed the governor of Umbria and Romagna, Italy, when barely 20 years old, and who, before retiring from public service, became the Grand Assessor of Spoleto. Francis's mother belonged to one of the best families of Civitavona in the Marches. Both father and mother were distinguished not only by birth and position, but also for their piety and Christian virtue. He received a good education throughout his early life and was admitted to the prestigious religious Jesuit college, where he more than excelled. He graduated first in his class and impressed his teachers and peers to the point that they openly admired him, but he cast that aside and entered the Passionist religious order. His entry into religious life is based on the fact that he was afflicted twice with serious conditions, and both times he promised God that if he returned to normal, he would join a religious order and live a religious life. The promises were evidently accepted, for each time they were made, the ailing youth quickly recovered. After the second of these instances and extraordinary renewals, he went to the Father Provincial of the Jesuits and asked to be received into the society. His request was granted, but he sort of played around with his vocation. He didn't take it all that seriously. He did not refuse to fulfill his promise to God, but again and again he deferred its fulfillment. While thus hesitating to answer his vocation and delaying to make use of the permission given him by the Father Provincial of the Jesuits, Francis began to think of becoming a Passionist. In his doubt and difficulty, he asked the advice of Father Peter Tedeschini. This holy priest told him to wait and pray for further guidance. This is a fantastic example of how patient God is with us. He had twice intervened for Francis, and now he gave the reluctant youth a more decisive call to duty. In the year 1856, another terrible affliction ravaged that country, but had been suddenly stopped at Spoleto through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin. In public gratitude for this miraculous favor, her statue was carried in procession through the streets of the city. Imagine now, if you would, if that happened today. Imagine the sight of the people of Italy processing with religious imagery throughout the entire country. I can't picture it. They just not in this modern world. Not just a few people, mind you, but the whole country doing it. Francis watched the procession, rather through curiosity than through devotion. As the statue was borne past him, he raised his eyes, and through the eyes of the statue Mary cast upon him a glance that pierced his inmost heart, as with a dart of fire. At the same time, he felt deep within his soul the following words: "Why? Thou art not made for the world. Why art thou doing in the world? Hasten, become a religious." The procession passed on, but Francis remained kneeling in prayer at the roadside. No one but he had seen or heard anything extraordinary. He apparently cried out with gratitude for the signal favor bestowed upon him. He thanked the Blessed Virgin again and again for her loving warning. From that moment he was a changed man. He no longer thought of anything but of fulfilling his vocation. He determined to become a Passionist. That resolution was made less than a month before the brilliant closing of his college career. He's famous for giving a famous address at his college. Within that time, he revealed his determination, first to his spiritual director and then to his father. He answered all objections against his choosing so hard a life, because the Passionists are a very demanding order, and completed arrangements with the Father Provincial of the Passionists for his entrance into the novitiate. Francis entered the Passionist Novitiate at Moravalle in September 1856. After living there in his secular dress for a short time and making a retreat for 10 days, he was clothed with the religious habit and received the name of Great Gabriel with the title of Our Lady of Sorrows. This change of name is made in signification of authority over the person whose name is changed, and of the putting off of the old man and putting on of the new, according to the advice of St. Paul. Here is an excerpt from the letter Gabriel, formerly Francis, sent to his father to mark the occasion. Quote, "My dear father, the day has come at last. The Almighty has been calling me for a long time, whilst I ungratefully turned a deaf ear to his voice by enjoying the world and displeasing him. But his infinite mercy sweetly disposed all things, and today, the feast of Our Lady of Sorrows, our mother and protectress, I was clothed in the holy habit, taking the name of Confrater Gabriel, Our Lady of Sorrows. Up to the present, my dear father, I have not experienced anything but pleasure, whether as regards this religious congregation or my vocation to it. Oh, rest assured that whosoever is called to the religious state receives a grace that he will never be able to fully comprehend. My excellent father, master, and vice-master send their kind regards together with my own. My greetings to the Jesuits in the orations, as well as to all inquiring friends. Begging your blessing, dear father, I remain your affectionate son." St. Gabriel's aim was perfection. His model was our Lord crucified. His patroness was the Mother of Sorrows. His guide was St. Paul of the Cross. His motive was the love of God. He gained his end not by vainly longing to do great things that might never be given him to do, but waiting for opportunities that might never occur, or but by doing with all his might whatsoever his hand found to do. He wished to prolong his fasts, but his director told him to be satisfied with those imposed by the rules of the congregation. He desired to practice great austerities, but was forbidden to attempt them. His path to sanctity involved obedience to his superiors as much as the inseparable link between faith and works does, for he desired the most austere practices, but saw in obedience a surrender of the will to those rightly over him. In the person of his superior he saw the person of Christ, and he humbly complied with his slightest wish. He ennobled the simplest act by the purity of his intention. What was trifling he made great by using it for an end. His constant occupation was the cultivation of the interior life, by always subduing the defects of nature, by always corresponding with God's grace, by always remembering God's presence, and by always communing with Him in prayer. Charity is the bond of perfection, and Gabriel's soul was aflame with charity. Unlike many other saints, he did not become a saint by being a major public figure. He gave no fiery sermons, preached no missions, nothing of the sort. His path to sanctity was the simple holiness of a religious. The rule of St. Paul of the Cross advises all Passionists to entertain a pious and ardent devotion towards the Immaculate Virgin Mother of God. Let them strive to imitate her sublime virtues and merit her seasonable protection. So well did Gabriel attend to this advice that Cardinal Parocchi, in his supplicatory letter to Pope Leo XIII, says, "Mary was the very soul of Gabriel's life, the source and model of the sanctity to which he attained, so that it may be truly said that in his devotion to the great Mother of God he has scarcely been equaled by any, even of the greatest saints." The two miracles presented for the beatification of Gabriel were the inexplicable restoration of Maria Mazzarella from an affliction with no material remedy, and the second was the instantaneous restoration of Dominic Tiber from an injury that the experts of his day, and even ours, could not address. He had a hernia, a very serious one. Gabriel was beatified by Pope St. Pius X on May 31st, 1903. At the canonization of St. Gabriel, Pope Benedict XV declared him a patron saint of Catholic youth, of students, and of those studying for the priesthood. In 1959, Pope John XXIII named him the patron of the Abruzzi region, where he spent the last 2 years of his life. His feast is the 27th of February on the pre-1955 calendar. He is also a fitting intercessor for our times, where many are afflicted with vanity, for for his path to sanctity involved him surrendering his vanity, which was something he was prone to, and taking up the life of the religious. He is also a fitting saint for our times due to the, shall we say, present situation in the world. I hope you found this helpful, or at least interesting. I have numerous saints I intend to cover in the near future. I learned of St. Gabriel from the pre-1955 liturgical calendar that I have on my kitchen wall that I received from the Oblates of St. Augustine. You can do a Google search for their website if you need a calendar or want to donate to the religious order, and they are a very small group and they could use your assistance. His feast is prominently displayed on that calendar, but I've never seen it in a modern liturgical calendar, rather sadly. Anyway, thank you for listening, and as always, pray for the Church. I hope you have a blessed and fruitful Lent. Ave Maria.